Hello and welcome to Illuminate Your Truth. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you guys today. I have a lot on my mind here. There's a lot going on in my world, and I really just feel like kind of sharing what is going on, what new and exciting things are happening spiritually for me. So first off, I want to talk a little bit about Psychopomp work. I know I talked a little bit about Psychopomp work in my previous podcast, Death in the Afterlife, part 1, and there's a part 2 as well. I talked about how I assisted my father in crossing over. Definitely one of the most important missions that I've ever had in my entire life, and it was completely and utterly beautiful. But psychopomping is the act of assisting a soul to cross over into the light, essentially freeing them and allowing them to not be trapped onto the earth plane. A lot of times souls will get trapped here if, they don't know that they've died, if they're in shock, if they don't believe that they've died. Usually it's a traumatic death, or sometimes they're holding on so tightly to the physical world that they will actually stay here. So psychopomp work, it releases their souls and their spirit. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about how this work is really changing for me, and it's really getting a little bit more intense. So I've been doing a lot of psychopomp work in my healing sessions. So I am an energy healer. I specialize in removing negative entities, attachments, blockages, and sometimes whenever I'm releasing energies from people, I find earthbound spirits. I will find the souls of their friends, their family members, and they're usually attached to them on their backs. Sometimes they'll be on their sides or just in their aura. A lot of times they're not even really attached to the body. And I'll see them, I'll find, where they are. And I usually talk to the client about what I'm seeing and experiencing, and they will usually give me the confirmation about the person who they believe is attached to them. I usually give them like a description or, tell them what they're saying. And sometimes I will, see the person and the description's pretty accurate, and they will instantly be like, that's so-and-so. And so I usually ask the client, hey, is it okay? Do you care if we cross them over? I really like to include my clients in the work as well, because it's very empowering. It's very beautiful work. And I really think that the client should also be a part of it as well. So I usually ask, I'm like, is it okay if we cross so-and-so over? How do you feel about that? Right now they're attached to your aura, your body. And, we should, do you want to try and set them free? And the answer is usually yes. And so we do that work together. And I usually call in Jesus. I love working with Jesus for any kind of psychopomp work. I also work with my father at times, but Jesus is definitely one of my main spirit guides that I work with whenever I'm crossing over spirits. Jesus just has this way of touching your heart, and he physically touches your heart. I usually see him putting his hand over their heart, and as soon as he sends in his love and his energy, his forgiveness, his acceptance, the soul usually just kind of opens up and just spills it, whatever they're holding on to, whatever they're confused about, whatever they need to let go of in order to set themselves free. Jesus has an excellent way of really getting down to what needs to get done. And souls usually have these cords that'll come out of their feet, their arms, their hands, and it'll sometimes attach to the things that they can't let go of. So it could be like your house, their work, their family members, their friends, their pets. It could be anything like that. And what we really want is we really want these cords to kind of dissolve. We want them to kind of dissolve and be loosened up and eventually let go. And so, Jesus really has this way of allowing them to get whatever they need to off their chest, release any negative energies that are holding them back and keeping them here, so that they can so that the cords can be dissolved and they can rise up and go into the light. And usually I see him walking with them hand in hand. Sometimes he's holding their hip, and they're walking into the light together. A lot of times I will see their the soul's spirit animal come and pick them up, and they'll like ride the animal into the light. It's a beautiful thing. Sometimes ancestors will come and they will kind of receive that person. It's very beautiful to witness. But like I said, I see this, and I do most of my Psychopomp work in my healing work, and releasing them from people, off of people. But recently I have been getting visits from children. And so I'll tell you about my first experience. So I really wanted to start connecting more with myself. And so I started up my spiritual practice again regularly every day. I have been taking these really nice spiritual baths. I will set an intention of the spirit guides I would like to connect with. I will just, ask for guidance on, what my next step is here and what I'm doing. And if I have anything in particular that I need to ask, I'll ask. But I've been getting in these spiritual baths, and, I've been going in at night, like really late, and taking these spiritual baths and lighting candles, and using essential oils in the water. Sometimes I'll do salt if I feel like I need to really cleanse myself. I'll put herbs in there. Just really depends on how I feel, and it's really nice for me and to get some alone time. I have 2 kids. I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, so they do consume a lot of my time. So it's really nice to be able to just like take that time and have some space and do some meditation and really get close to my guides. My guides are so important to me. They really protect me. They keep me safe for the work that I do, which is very necessary. And so it's really important for me to hone that relationship and just keep that fresh and keep it real, and consistent. So I've been taking these spiritual baths, and one instance where it started this trend of, children was I was taking my spiritual bath, and out of the corner of my eye, I just kept seeing this little figure, so I'm doing my meditations and I'm talking to my guides, and like, I just keep seeing this figure. Nothing threatening. I wasn't scared, it didn't feel scary at all. And at the end of my, I'm done talking to my guides and stuff. And so at the end of that session, I was just like, okay, like, who are you? Like, what's up? And then I saw her, and it was a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 10 years old. She had long black hair, and she looked very disheveled. Her clothes were very tattered, and, I just kind of talked to her, and I was like, hey, I called in Jesus, and I was just like, would you like to be crossed over? She's really sweet. She didn't really say anything. She didn't really need to. So I called in Jesus, and Jesus kind of took her hand and, talked to her a little bit, and had a little conversation, and I just kind of witnessed it. I really like to be the witness of the work that Jesus does, and Sometimes I will step in and I'll get involved, but if I am not needed, then I'm just going to let him do his thing. So yeah, like they just kind of, he put his hand on his heart and, she said what she needed to. And then I saw her kind of look back at me, and then they both kind of walked into this light. Usually there's like a light vortex that kind of opens up, and they just kind of walked through it, and allowing her to cross over into the light. So that was beautiful. And so after that session, I was like, wow, okay, this is new. No one's ever really come to me like that. And so yeah, so that was the first experience. Now, the last experience was a little bit more intense and a little bit more shocking for me. So I'd been like sleeping in my living room with my family. Sometimes it's just easier to do that with the kids. Sometimes they fall asleep a little bit easier on the couches. And so we've been kind of sleeping downstairs. And I remember at midnight I woke up. And I didn't wake up like gently. It was very, very abrupt. I woke up and I had this feeling that somebody was on my porch. Not a person, like a spirit. I felt that. And, how did I feel that? I just checked in with my body and I asked it, what am I feeling? Because I felt a little bit of fear because it was very uncomfortable. And it wasn't like, it's not like scary uncomfortable. It's just uncomfortable as to like, you're not alone. Like I knew it wasn't my husband, and I knew it wasn't my kids, and I knew it wasn't a physical person. So I'm like, okay, let's try and narrow it down. Like, what could it be? And so I was like, I don't know. I don't know what it is. And then I fell asleep. I didn't really get to go into it. And then I woke up again at, I believe it's like 12:50. I woke up and it was abrupt again. And I was like, okay, something is here. Something's here. And I felt it more in my house. It was more like in the kitchen. And, I asked, I'm like, what are you? And it was a soul. And I had like understood in my mind that they wanted to be crossed over. Granted, I'm like sleeping, you know what I mean? And so I called in Jesus and I was like, Jesus, can you, talk to this spirit, and then I fell asleep. I was so tired. Like I couldn't even really like assist or like be useful at that moment. So now it's like 2 a.m. I was in a really deep sleep. I was having very vivid dreams at this point. You figure it's like 2 a.m. Like, I was really in my heavy, heavy, heavy sleep. And all of a sudden, I woke up, but I was paralyzed. I was experiencing sleep paralysis. And I remember not being able to fully open my eyelids. And I remember not being able to talk. But I do very clearly remember he couldn't have been more than 15-year-old boy spirit standing next to me. And he just said, I need to go to the bathroom. I need to go to the bathroom. And it was a very gentle voice. It wasn't like mean or angry. But he was just like, I need to go to the bathroom. And I'm like, trying to like see clearly. I could see him, but I couldn't really like move. Like I couldn't even fully open my eyelids. And I was just literally like trying to call for my husband, but it wouldn't come out. And so I was just like paralyzed there. And I was just like, it was very terrifying. I think I was more afraid of the fact that I couldn't move and I couldn't talk, as opposed to this boy standing next to my bed, next to me while I was going through this. So then I snapped out of it, and then I was able to move, and I like woke up my husband, and I was like, oh my God, you're never going to believe what happened. Like, well, first of all, I was like, can you please sleep next to me? Because I was sleeping by myself on the one couch, and I was like, please get over here, and I was telling him about my experience. And I was just like, yeah, there was like a little, like a young boy, and he wanted me to take him to the bathroom. And, I knew what he wanted, what he needed. Oh, I don't know if he knew what he wanted, but I knew what he needed. I knew he needed crossed over. And so I was like, wow, So I went upstairs, and I talked to my ancestors about it, because I was really freaked out about the sleep paralysis thing. I feel like everybody who experiences that has a really it's scary. So, the stuff you find on the internet, when you look it up, it's kind of like, oh my God, what is going on? But I was able to talk to my ancestors about it and really piece it together and understand what it was. He had woken me up like multiple times throughout the night, but that last time, that third time he woke me up, I was sleeping so heavy that I didn't really, you know what I mean? I didn't fully wake up. So I was experiencing that sleep paralysis. And so after that, I was like, okay, well, I need to set some boundaries here, because I can't just be getting woken up by spirits, just because, they want to get crossed over. I can't this can't happen all the time. It's not healthy for me. And it's not what I want. I want it to go differently. I don't want it to be like that. That was very shocking for me. It's like, I'll do the work, but it needs to be on my terms. So I spoke to my spirit guides about it, my ancestors, and I came up with a solution for that in a way of where I can create boundaries for myself, create boundaries for the work that I do, the Psychopomp work that I do, and have that safety and have those rules in place, so that, spirits aren't always bombarding me. Because I feel like if this continues to happen, it's going to be very frustrating, and it could cause problems. I'm going to talk a little bit more about different ways that you can protect yourself and ways that you can set boundaries for yourself in another podcast. But just know that that's possible. So I was definitely like, yes, I need to create some boundaries here. And then I was also like, why am I being visited by the souls of dead children? This is intense. So I did some more, journey. I did some more journeying. I asked for some guidance, and then I pulled some tarot, and I pulled the Empress, and I was, kind of exploring that card. And it said people will be drawn to you, especially those in need of empathy, compassion, and nurturing that you're able to provide. And then it all clicked, and it made sense. I am the mother. I'm also a life path 6, which is that mothering, nurturing energy. And it makes sense that children would come to me, because I definitely love kids. I love working with kids. I love being with kids, around kids. And I have this mama bear energy of protecting them. And so to think of that, I was like, wow, okay, this definitely makes sense that they would come to me in order to receive that help, even though I don't even know if they knew what they needed, but they found me anyways, and I know what they needed. And it's just so beautiful. I just am really honored to be able to do this work. It brings me so much joy and happiness, and it makes me feel useful. But another thing too that I've been working on is developing my psychic abilities even more. Now I'm very clairaudient. I definitely can hear spirits. I am definitely clairvoyant whenever I don't actually see spirits in front of me. I mean, I guess I did this time, but I usually don't. Usually I have to close my eyes to see them. But once I close my eyes, I can see a whole nother world. It's pretty cool. But So I have the clairvoyance, the clairaudience. I definitely feel clairsentience. And now I'm working on this clair called the Clairalience, and that is clair smelling. I actually did a journey a few days ago, and I was journeying to the upper world, and an anteater came to me as one of my spirit animals. And, he came to me with the energy of really helping me connect with myself, my self-confidence, loving myself more. But he also came to me because he wanted me to work on my smell, and sensing spirits around me by smell. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. Like, I've never thought about developing another ability, because I still feel like I'm developing the ones that I already have. So I was like, okay, well, this could be fun. So I found, some tools on how to develop my clairalience. So I read that connecting with Archangel Sandalphon is excellent. And there's also this meditation tip of visualizing a dial, and the dial it goes from 1 to 10. And I visualize clairalience written on above the dial, and visualizing the dial turning to 10. And then breathing in glowing golden light into the nose, down the sinuses, into the throat, and breathing it in, and just visualizing it clearing any fears, any stagnant energies there, just allowing for the clairalience to flow. And so I did this for literally a day. And, the night that the young boy came to me for assistance, I smelled burnt. Like, before he woke me up, I smelled a burnt smell. And he looked like he was covered in soot. I don't know the nature of his death, but he was covered in black soot. So I found that to be very interesting, because I had a hint, a smell of it, before he came, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. I really think that it can help me sense whenever spirits are around and my eyes are open. But yeah, so clairalience, definitely, so that means clear smelling. But yeah, so really excited to kind of develop that ability. I would definitely be using it in my healing work, my clearing work of homes. I definitely think that it could be useful. But yeah, so I just wanted to update you guys on my Psychopomp journey. It's getting really intense, and I'm excited about the next step of it. And I just wanted to share my experiences with you. I don't know if you guys have experiences of crossing over people or souls visiting you, but if you guys follow me on Instagram, Facebook, I would love to hear your experiences. I usually post, about my experiences on Facebook, Instagram, and feel free to use that comment section to tell me about your experiences. I really would enjoy hearing about them. I know I'm not the only one out there experiencing these kind of phenomena. I mean, it's very powerful, very intense, very, very beautiful, very shocking, and it can sometimes be a little scary, but once you get the clarification, it definitely evens itself out. So but thank you so much for listening, and like I said, I'll be talking a little bit more about ways you can protect yourself and ways that you can set boundaries around spirits in the spirit world, because we're allowed to have boundaries too, and you're allowed to protect yourself. You're allowed to have rules, because there's free will here, and you're allowed to do that. But I'll talk about that in another podcast. But thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you guys have a wonderful week. And yeah, so you'll be hearing from me soon. Have a good day, guys. Bye.